Hi guys, and welcome to Tech Talk with TD Africa. I'm your host Chidalu, and today we have a very special guest in the building. He is one of the sharpest minds in African e-commerce. He has received various awards, including the Young Leadership Award by This Day. He was recognized as one of the top 100 most influential people of African descent, and more recently was recognized and honored by the Forbes Renewable Energy Leadership Awards as the African e-commerce leader. He's my personal favorite entrepreneur, not just because I've known him 3 decades, the one, the only, Prince Nnamdi Ekeh. Welcome, Nnamdi. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, we know a bit about your journey. You started your first company when you were just 22 years old. This was back in 2014, straight out of university. But we both know that a company is not something you wake up and do. This is something that had to have been, in the works for a couple of months, a couple of years. Take us back and put us in that mindset that you were in as a young 21, 22-year-old, thinking about building the first ever composites, e-commerce or retail experience in Africa.
Yeah, so like you said, it's something I was thinking about before I eventually graduated. But when you're young, fresh out of university, you feel like you can conquer the world, and then at some point reality hits and you realize that it's not as easy as you expected. So I think my feeling at that point in time was a lot of confidence. And then when you come into the market and you start to see the realities on how difficult it is to launch a business, then you start to not reduce your optimism, but you start to become more realistic in terms of how you set your goals and how you try to scale. But luckily for us, when we launched Udala, things went well, and every year from there we're able to grow and scale until at some point we acquired Konga.
Yes, and that was an amazing feat as a young player in the game to be able to, acquire one of your biggest competitors at that time. So what inspired you to acquire Konga, and is this a decision that, you've ever had to question?
Yeah, so at that point in time, Udala was growing and was growing very quickly. But at the same time, the e-commerce market was very tough, and the competition was very strong. At that point, I would say there were 2 main players, and then Udala was trying to fight his way into the top spot. So at some point, I got a call from the CEO of Konga at that time, and he told me that they were. Actually, before he told me that he was speaking around like how do we collaborate, and that was very weird because at that time it was like war. We're poaching each other's stuff, we're trying to slash each other's prices, fighting each other's with the OEMs. So I felt it weird that our competitor is asking us how do we collaborate around logistics, supply chain, etc. But we started to have those conversations, and then a few weeks after that, he told me that his investors were looking at selling the business, and if we wanted to step in as an investor. So we told them that the only way we'll step in is if we're going to buy Konga 100% outright. So after a lot of back and forth in negotiations, we closed the deal. And for us, it made a lot of sense because at that same time, Udala was looking at expanding into the marketplace model. When we launched, we were doing purely first party, meaning that every product that we sold on Udala, we had the physical stock in our warehouse. But we're looking at launching a marketplace, and Konga had a very strong marketplace. So I think everything happened at the perfect time. And if we had spent the money to launch our own marketplace, maybe we would have spent a lot more than what we invested to acquire Konga. So it happened. It happened like I always say, a perfect timing. So once the deal closed, we acquired Konga, and the reason why we'll never regret the decision to acquire Konga is because the scale at which we have grown since the acquisition of Konga, the synergy between Udala's offline model and B2B and corporate presence combined with Konga's e-commerce strength allowed us to grow significantly since acquisition. So we never really looked back since then.
That is amazing. You rarely see a business that says they have no regrets in acquiring another company. But let us talk about how you've grown Konga from a struggling company, let's call a spade, to now a profitable business. What has been your toughest moment in reviving Konga?
So I won't say Konga was struggling when we acquired them, but okay. I think what happened sometimes is that the investors' mindset changes and the approach to some of their investment changes, and I think they didn't have the patience to allow Konga become what it needed to be. So at the point we acquired it wasn't struggling, but there were definitely a lot of optimizations that needed to happen in terms of the amount of money they were burning on a monthly basis. So what we did is we came in, we turned off all the taps, and then we started to only turn on the taps that are essential. And then what we saw is that we're able to run the business a lot more efficient. So we acquired a business that was losing hundreds of millions of naira every month, and we brought it to a business that is profitable every month. So it was a long journey. The hardest part most times is, it's very easy to integrate the operations. Not easy, but it's easier to integrate the operations, integrate the technology. But sometimes, like things like the human capital become very difficult. You have two different companies with two different cultures. Integrating the two and getting everybody to run with one very clear vision and mindset is really difficult. So that takes, I think it takes years, and you need to continue to reinforce that mindset so that there's no Udala, there's no Konga. Everything is just one mindset.
So what would you say in creating that harmony between the two companies? What would you give as like a tip for other companies that are looking into acquiring or merging to create that harmony with their human capital?
I think the first thing you need to realize is that you can't please everybody. So you just need to decide on what are the strategic objectives and goals of the business of this new combined entity, and find the right people that will drive it. So the reality is that maybe from one company you could have a senior manager that maybe is not as qualified as a senior manager in the other company. You have to decide who would be better for the role in this new entity and give that person the opportunity, regardless of their age, regardless of their experience, as long as they are the right person for that particular job. So it's usually have to take tough decisions like that. And then in terms of harmonizing, it's really around letting people know that there's no, like at some point we banned using the word, because people use the word your Udala, your Konga. We have to ban people from saying that. So if you say that, we find you, because that just creates a level of separation and a negative mindset in terms of, okay, you belong to this group, you belong to this group. So it's just like doing things like that and continue to reinforce that, see, we're now one company, these are the goals of the company, this is the vision, this is the mission, and continue to just hammer that across the entire organization.
Okay, I think that's a very important step to take, because once people see themselves as separate groups, it would just go against everything that you're trying to build. And you touched on, not automating, but optimizing a lot of the processes once you took over Konga. And I want to talk about, the future of e-commerce. Right now, smart retail is what is trending. In terms of AI, process automation, immersive tech. Where do you see AI and how will it play with your customers, your online customers especially? How do you think AI can optimize that experience for them?
Yeah, I think AI will play a big factor, especially in Africa. We typically jump the gun in a lot of things around technology, and we haven't seen the huge adoption necessarily in e-commerce in Africa, as we have in China, as we have in India, as we have in most parts of the Western world. But I think that journey will be made a lot easier with artificial intelligence. So I think number one is from the customer perspective. So let's say I'm a young guy. I grew up in the village. I'm not as educated as someone that grew up in an urban area. I'm not as used to technology as someone that grew up in an urban area. I might have issues navigating an e-commerce platform, everything from selecting the product, adding to cart, checking out. But if I have an artificial chatbot that I can talk to and just say, okay, this is what I'm looking for, this is the specifications of what I'm looking for, this is the color I want, etc. And it could show me the product and then order the product for me very seamlessly. Then that creates a very interesting customer experience. Now, have we seen that done at scale? No. Is it going to work? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But I feel like things around that area of improving the customer experience for people who might not be as used to shopping online, I feel like there's huge opportunities around that. And then there's also huge opportunities around the experience that customers would or the interaction they have with the e-commerce platform. For example, a lot of things around uploading the products. Like most e-commerce platforms have a whole production team that makes sure that the products are clear, that you have multiple images of each product. A lot of those things can be fully automated by artificial intelligence now. So it just makes that whole process a lot easier. So that even if you have 5 million SKUs on your platform, you can easily scale uploading those products and making sure that they have the right content, etc.
So you spoke about the customer experience, and one thing about Nigerians, they love to haggle. They love to get a good deal. So if Konga was to introduce like a haggle button where, you know, you're negotiating prices with AI, do you think this would be a hit or a complete disaster?
So I think that's an interesting thesis, but I probably would disagree with that. I feel like people don't like to haggle. People just would like the best deal, the best price.
Okay.
So if I could go to a market and just get the best price, I would rather do that than go back and forth arguing on the price. So there's this perception that Nigerians like to haggle, but Nigerians really just want the best price, you know. So I think the objective, and that's something that, you know, if you look at like Amazon has done very well. Amazon will make sure that it has the best price across multiple SKUs, the better price than you find in any other platform, and there's a mandate to ensure that across the entire organization, you know. So I think it's really on us just to ensure that across the products that we sell, we have the best price. I feel like customers will prefer that, and once you build that trust that if you go to Konga you have the best price, the customer will prefer that than having to go back and forth in terms of negotiating the price. However, there are opportunities around B2B e-commerce, and we've seen that trend come up. Konga has a very strong stronghold on B2B e-commerce. We sell to major suppliers across the country because of our distribution network, and in those scenarios, of course, there has to be some level of negotiation. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's interesting, and let me just touch back on what you said about AI chatbots. So we know that, you know, AI assistants have sometimes a hard time understanding our accent, the Nigerian accent. So this is just a fun question: if Konga was to create its own AI voice, which Nigerian celebrity would be behind that voice?
Oh, Thames, 100%.
Okay, that was a quick answer.
Her voice is sweet, soulful, still has the Nigerianness in her voice, you know, but not in a very nice, soulful way, you know. So I don't mind calling Konga call center for 24 hours and just listening to Thames' voice.
Shout out Thames, actually. Yeah, beautiful voice, beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about the youth and the future of e-commerce. We see a lot of young Nigerians moving to drop shipping, creating online stores. Do you think that e-commerce will become the biggest creator of jobs in Nigeria within the next 10 years?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, if you look at the potential scale for e-commerce, Nigeria has a population of over 300 million people. Right now, if you look at the percentage that are using e-commerce today, it's still under, let's say 2% are adopting e-commerce today. So when it gets to the scale where at least 50% of Nigerians, that's over 150 million people, are adopting e-commerce, then you definitely need a whole ecosystem around that to support it, because you need the warehouse staff that is able to put the goods on the shelf, take the goods off the shelf. You need the whole logistics ecosystem. So you need delivery drivers, etc. So the larger e-commerce gets, the more adoption we get, on the 100%, you're definitely going to see a lot more employment from e-commerce. I mean, even at the scale we are presently, we have close to 1,000 employees across our business. So of course, as the e-commerce scales, we expect to see more employment coming from there.
And how is Konga positioning themselves to take advantage of these young entrepreneurs that are trying to enter the same, I guess, the similar or same space?
Trying to enter e-commerce?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, we're a platform. So what we do is we connect buyers and sellers. So anybody who has goods that they want to sell, we look at them as a partner. So even connecting them outside Konga's ecosystem. So Konga.com has a marketplace, but we understand that people like to sell their products multi-channel. So yes, you want to have your products listed on Konga. You're probably also going to have your product listed on your social media platform. You might have it listed on another e-commerce platform, and for us that's fine. But what we want to do is we want to support the merchants across all their channels. So that's why we set up Konga Pay. So with Konga Pay, we're supporting them with payments across multiple channels. With our logistics platform, we're supporting them with logistics across multiple channels. So even if you sell from your social media platform, we can support you with logistics to deliver. We can support you with payments to receive to do your collections and receive payments.
Speaking of payments, let's be real. One of the biggest challenges in e-commerce today is payments.
Yeah.
A lot of Nigerians prefer pay on delivery, but as a business owner, I'm sure you know it is very tough to offer that nationwide 100%.
Yeah.
So Do you think fintechs, digital wallets like Konga Pay, will be able to tackle some of these challenges of one trust so that maybe at some point they take over cash transactions in Nigeria?
Oh yeah, definitely. And we're seeing the trend. I think I saw a report a few days ago that the cash usage in Nigeria dropped by about 50%, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
So we're seeing huge adoption of digital payment platforms, huge adoption of people using their mobile apps for payments instead of using cash options. So I think it's just a natural transition, and the good thing is that with digital payments you have a lot more access because you have access to e-commerce, you have access to so much. But you're right, 100%. Payment on delivery is a big challenge for most e-commerce companies, and I think that what we've done is that we've used our payment platform Konga Pay to kind of reduce the headache around that. Konga Pay was initially set up as an escrow platform to reduce the dependence of payment on delivery. And now what we've done is we've made it a full-fledged digital payment platform, or a full-fledged digital bank where we allow our customers to deposit money there, do withdrawals, do their bill payments, and anytime they want to shop on Konga, it makes that payment process extremely seamless. And we even offer discounts for them using their Konga Pay wallets to pay on our platform.
And Konga Pay, like you mentioned, this is something that was birthed out of a need, and it has been around for many years now. But with a lot of new fintech startups popping up, how do you stay competitive in the market? What is Konga Pay doing differently?
Yeah, so like you said, Konga Pay was set up in 2016. We're probably one of the first few mobile money organizations that were launched then. But the focus for Konga Pay at that time was solving the payment problems around Konga. So we started off with the payment gateway, making sure that the success rate was efficient. At that point in time, we had about a 70% failure rate on our gateway. It was still the early days of e-commerce. There's still a lot of issues around payments with cards, but with Konga Pay, we were able to reduce that to about 10%, and then it kept getting better and better across the years, to the point where it's about 98-99% success rate. Then we decided to look at solving payment problems for our customers. So we launched the Konga Pay wallet, where our customers had access to a wallet to make payments on Konga.com. And then we started to look at how do we solve payments problems for our merchants. And that's where it started to get very interesting. And that became really our core focus around how do we solve payment problems for merchants. The reality is that if you're a small seller today, you probably have a lot of challenges around payment collections. You want to be able to easily generate an invoice. You want to be able to easily collect payments, tie those payments to your invoices, do reconciliations. If you're an offline seller, you want to be able to have a POS and be able to do easy reconciliations on those POS. So what we did in Konga Pay is that we started to look at how do we build solutions for merchants. So this starts off with things that we already have within our ecosystem, like a payment gateway with payment links. Then we looked at the offline side of things. So right now we have our own Konga Pay POS. But what we did as interesting is that we built an inventory management solution on those POSs. So if I'm a small seller, I can upload all my inventory on my POS.
Oh, wow.
And then as I sell and customers pay, it depletes my inventory. So it works pretty much like a small ERP. So I mean, there's so many problems around payments for merchants. Even if you look at things like cross-border payments, a lot of merchants, they might buy their products from Alibaba, from suppliers in China, and they need to be able to make those payments. So we started working with our merchants on cross-border payments, and we've seen huge traction with that. Right now Konga has about 170,000 merchants, and as we continue to solve the payment problems for these merchants, we start to see value even outside our merchant ecosystem. So we're now starting to go out into the market to other merchants, to supermarkets, to other retailers, to offer some of these products that we've built over the years.
So it looks like Konga is constantly evolving to tackle not only their merchants' challenges, their business challenges, but other challenges that they see outside of the business. So if you had one tech superpower that could completely transform your business, what would it be?
Well, I think it's instant delivery. So you order, you get your product in 5 minutes, because that's really where the future is. And you see a lot of innovation around this in China, even in the US, in Western Europe, where people are trying to do extremely quick deliveries. But the way e-commerce is going to shine and kind of trump physical retail is that level of convenience. Yeah. So right now, average, you get your product in maybe 1 to 2 days, but when you can break that down to a few minutes, then you completely change the game. But it takes a lot of investment in infrastructure, in delivery assets, etc. to get that done. So is it going to happen one day, 100%? But it's going to take a lot of work to get it done.
And you spoke about changing the game, and this is one of the things that I call you a game changer. Speaking again to, this quick delivery, I believe it was about 2016, 2017, where Udala did the first drone delivery in the country, I believe in Africa. So this is the sort of forward-thinking, innovation that you bring to the African market. But what are the challenges there? Why didn't we see it scale into something a lot bigger than it is now?
Yeah, so I mean, at that point in time, we're kind of just like experimenting and playing around with it, like looking at the future of drone delivery. How would it look like? What would it look like? Will customers accept it? So the reason why it stalled around that time is because there were a lot of issues around like regulation for drone technology. Drones, like how do you really regulate the airspace for drones moving around? How do you ensure safety in case a drone like drops from the sky and injures somebody? Is there any like level of insurance, etc. around that? So there was a lot of confusion around that space. There still is, but it's getting a lot better. But I think the challenge will be, how do you like scale drone delivery? Do you have drones that are large enough to do multiple deliveries at once? So those are the kind of things we need to look at. So they will continue to research. There are a lot of companies that focus really on drone technology now. We'll continue to research and look at that, and at the point we see that there will be a level of acceptability and scalability, then it's something that we'll definitely pick up.
Okay, amazing. And I don't want to focus too much. I know we've spoken a lot about challenges. I don't want to focus too much on the challenges that you faced. What is one big win in your journey that you remember? Can you talk us through it and how it really changed the trajectory of your career?
One big win. You have a lot of failures and wins every day, but if I had to pick one, I think honestly I'll still say it's probably the acquisition of Konga, because that really changed the game for us at that point in time. The problem with first party retail, which we were doing in Udala, is that there's a level of like there's like a limit to how quickly you can grow, because if you have to house physical inventory, then you need to keep getting bigger warehouses, you need to keep getting more inventory, investing more in working capital, etc. So it kind of limits your growth. But with the marketplace, there's really no limit to your growth. You can have 1 million merchants selling 10 million products, and you're selling like billions of dollars every month. So that kind of just opened the floodgates for us, and of course we've been able to leverage on that.
So today we've spoken a lot about, your life as an entrepreneur. We know that you come from a very entrepreneurial family, so it seems, I don't know if it is, like this is something that is in your blood, it's something that you've always known you would do. But if you were not an entrepreneur, if you had a 9-to-5, or if you had a different passion, what would it be?
I'll probably be a product manager. Because I find it very interesting the way product works. I'm a product nerd, so when I download a new app, I'm using a particular device, I'm always intrigued about how it works, what makes it work, potential improvements in it, how do you make the user experience better, etc. So honestly, if I wasn't who I am today, I'll probably be a product manager.
Interesting. And is this something like 18-year-old Nnamdi thought you would be doing? Did you think at that point you were just going to go into product management, or did you know at that point that you're going to take the path of an entrepreneur?
So when I was 18, funny enough, I wanted to go into investment banking. I always had a strong background or strong interest in finance. I started like stock trading through my parents when I was like 14. Back then they used to release the stock prices on the newspaper in the morning, so I used to go on the newspaper, check the 3 stocks that I bought, but back then it wasn't much. I think I had like 5,000 naira of each of each stock, but it kept me interested in finance and investment and how to make your money basically work for you. So I always had a very strong interest in finance. I studied economics in university, and I wanted to go into investment banking after that, but of course plans changed.
And speaking of investments, because there are a lot of young Nigerians with big and bright ideas. If you had $1 billion naira today, and you were to bet on an industry, a company, where would that money go?
That's an interesting question. So very soon I plan to start a fund. I spend a lot of my time operating, and at some point you have to take a step back and see how do you build the tech ecosystem, and how do you make sure that people, the opportunities you had, other people have those same opportunities. And a lot of my investments would be around B2B products. I feel like a lot of people are not focusing on how to solve problems for business, how to create business solutions. And if you look at the most successful businesses in tech in Nigeria today, they are all B2B. So you look at the likes of Flutterwave, look at the likes of Paystack. These are B2B focused business, and the reason they're able to scale is that businesses understand the value that they bring in terms of their payment collections, etc., and whatever they're doing. So I feel like it's a huge space, and a lot of startups tend to focus on consumers because it's flashy, it's sexy. But there are too many fish. There are too many people chasing one fish when there's this huge market around B2B that I don't think enough companies are focusing on. So. And maybe because it's not as sexy, because maybe your brand won't be as well known if you're a B2B company versus B2C company. But in terms of, if you look at the valuations that some of these companies are getting and the value that they're actually creating in the market, I think that's a very interesting space. And so that's probably where I'll invest most of my funds.
All right. So hopefully I can think of maybe a business solution that you invest in.
Why not?
Maybe take that $1 billion and we can work together.
Why not?
So thank you so much, Nnamdi, for coming on the podcast. Before we wrap up, I love to play table talk just to get to know you a little bit better, and I hope you indulge me. Let me just grab the cards. Table talk at Tech Talk with TD Africa, and we'll just play one or two and see what comes up. I'll give you 3 skips in case it's too personal. You can tap in.
Let's see. Ha.
Is it an answerable question?
No, it's
then you can drop it in.
Wow.
See what it is. Please.
What do you believe in despite not having any proof of it? I guess in the supernatural, there's no proof that evil spirits or even good spirits, angels exist, but you have to believe in it. And actually, I'll even extend it to spirituality and religion. What proof is there that a God really exists? But you have to believe in God. So I think it's probably around spirituality and religion.
Okay, nice. Let me see if I can answer. What is something you failed at recently? This is a tough question.
Or something I failed at recently?
I failed at recently.
Oh, okay. It's your turn.
My turn. This is a tough question. What have I failed at recently?
You don't fail?
I don't fail.
Wow.
I'm a winner. All I do is win. I don't know. I think one thing that I struggled with is being there, being present in some of my friendships. I think sometimes I take a step back and I'm not as accessible as I probably should be.
So you're a bad friend?
I'm trying to be a better friend, and hopefully I can be in 2025. But yeah, I think that's something. So one more for you. Drop it because
if your partner is cheating on you, would you like to know? Which kind of question is
that? Actually, would you actually like to know?
Of course I would like to know. The question
people,
is, why would you want to know?
Some people just like to live in the Lulu land, I guess. Maybe they just like the perception that everything is perfect.
Interesting. It's better to live in reality.
I mean, fair. Facts, actually. Ooh. What will you do differently from your parents when bringing up your child?
I'm interested in this.
This is very... I want to hear your answer, actually. Maybe we'll both answer this one.
Okay.
This is a tough question. I mean, it takes you back to your childhood. I'm trying to remember. That was years ago. I don't know. So both of my parents worked growing up, and I don't know. What would I do differently? What would you do differently bringing up your child? This is a tough question.
I think there's only one answer to this question.
What was the answer?
I won't do anything differently. I love you, mom and dad. You're perfect parents. I'm not like this one that
wow
that is looking for flaws.
Wow, no flaws. A1. You guys did well. 5 out of 5. Shout out to you.
No, 10 out of 10.
Well, we're 5. There are 5 of us. But yeah, thank you so much, Nnamdi, for joining us. This has been phenomenal, and we really appreciate your time. And hopefully, with all the growth and the plans that you have on coming on, we'll have you back at Tech Talk with TD Africa.
Sure.
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us today, and have the day that you deserve.